Announcing progress in our work to reform New Zealand's AML CFT system. The system within our law focuses on tackling crime in the areas of anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism. Our AML CFT system plays an important role. It contains requirements for businesses and individuals that are intended to prevent crime, particularly organised crime. We need to ensure that the law contributes to that key purpose. And to do that effectively, we need an agile, streamlined system that is laser focused on real risk. Unfortunately, too often the requirements are confusing, they're obstructive, and they're also costly. For example, where mothers cannot open bank accounts for their children unless they're able to prove where their child lives, or elderly widows who had relied on their husbands to take care of the bills and are now unable to have a bank account in their own name because they have no written proof to say that they live in their own home. These are clear indications of how the system is failing to take a properly risk-based approach. The changes we are making will ensure we have a truly risk-based system. This will better enable law enforcement to crack down on organised crime by providing the financial intelligence needed to go after the criminal organisations. It will also be more aligned with international obligations and standards and will provide regulatory relief for the lower risk businesses and the public. Our changes include removing both address verification requirements for many customers and relaxing enhanced customer due diligence requirements for lower risk trusts. This will help make it easier for mums and dads to set up bank accounts for their kids and easier for vulnerable Kiwis, including the elderly, to get access to essential financial services. Similarly, opening a bank account for children should be simple and a positive step, teaching them the value of saving. And unfortunately, regulations designed to prevent serious crimes can make the process unnecessarily difficult. Under the government's new reforms, banks will be allowed to apply a simplified process when the risk is low. These are common sense reforms. Through this work, we are building on our coalition agreement promises to tackle organised crime and to cut the red tape where it's appropriate to help the Kiwis live and do business more easily and at less cost. We're focusing on outcomes rather than ticking boxes and trusting New Zealanders to make responsible decisions without being buried under regulation. There's more to come, and I look forward to sharing the next steps with you shortly.
Questions?
Isn't and I get that it might sound a little bit trivial to counter this, but the fact that there's so many steps and balances and checks and something as trivial as a child's bank account, isn't that kind of the point of the legislation if somebody's going to use that for nefarious purposes? Have you done any sort of risk analysis on how many people have been using or in the past have been using children's bank accounts for money laundering and such things?
Well, the whole point of the regime was to try and stop dirty money from flowing overseas. And we've put so much restraint on everyday Kiwis being able to go about their business without actually looking at whether or not we're following the dirty money. So when we look at whether or not bank accounts are being set up, it's hard to see whether or not there is money being laundered through children's bank accounts, but we have restrictions in place, such as $1,000 limits on transactions that are taking place. This means that we can't be using children's bank accounts to launder money, and we want to ensure that that process is there for our kids and their futures.
So you're confident that the changes that you've announced today won't allow people to launder money through kids' bank accounts?
Yes, I do feel confident with that, and not only that, the Financial Action Task Force told us we need to go out there and take risks. For the last 11 years, we've done none of that. It's about time we let Kiwis get on with living.
No longer requiring proof of address. Is that just for children's bank accounts or for adults as well?
It's going to be for some adults as well, in areas where people know who their customer is. So for example, if you've been dealing with an entity for 20 years, you've already proven that you are who you are. Why should you have to keep doing it again and again?
And one other thing that just annoys people so much, I've been going to the same lawyer for 20 years. I know them. I even have a drink with them sometimes, and I have to prove who I am. What Nicole's doing, in my view, is just common sense, risk proportionate, It's balancing our need to fight organised crime and keep our international obligations with some basic common sense so people don't get infuriated by crazy requirements all the time.
And who makes the risk assessment?
The banks will make the risk assessment at the time that you open an account or come in wanting to open an account for your child, or if you're an elderly widow. The banks will be able to make that assessment, and there'll be guidelines that will be given to them by the supervisors in due course.
And that comes with conditions though, so it could have transaction limits of a certain amount. Is that how that works?
The transaction limits will be $1,000 at a time.
And what other low risk sort of conditions could there be?
Well, I think that's low risk enough. I mean, if you have a 2-year-old that's suddenly depositing $1,000 every day, you are going to raise some alarm bells there.
Yeah.
What have
you could always come up with a crazy situation, but I think to some extent this is about restoring some sanity to an area that has been frankly insane for too long.
What do the officials think of the changes? Have they raised any kind of thorny areas where one trade-off you're making in favour of ease of use has come at the cost of potentially opening a door to money laundering again? Or?
The officials are thrilled that they've finally got a minister who's taking this on board, who understands the scenarios and the issues that we face, and starting to give relief to Kiwis so that they can go about operating their businesses, buying and selling homes, operating those bank accounts easy. So they are thrilled that we're making some changes while still following the duty money and meeting our international obligations.
So they're broadly on board with the benefits that this regulatory change is creating in terms of helping people access financial services are worth any potential costs on the other side.
Yes, well, the officials have told us that it's been long overdue. At the end of the day, this government has decided to do something about it, and the officials are supporting us to do so.
How big a problem is it? Can you quantify like how many people have complained about the process?
Can't tell you how many people exactly have complained, except for the number of people who have told me that they can't open bank accounts. And this is a very core Kiwi thing. The acting Prime Minister told you about his time at school. I think I'm showing my age by saying the same thing happened to me, and I think to many other people here as well.
It was in dollars and cents though, right?
But when we hear that children cannot open a bank account, there's something very un-Kiwi about that, about teaching our children how to save. And this is going to be the first in many steps of relief that we can give Kiwis.
I just add for Thomas also, Nicole has a series of announcements throughout the week, but in some areas it's going to get tougher, and it's really, I think, about being more risk proportionate and more targeted. So there will be some stronger powers on truly bad activity, which helps satisfy our international arrangements, while also introducing some common sense proportionality for example, a widow who's just lost their life partner may not have access to a lot of the documentation required. These are real stories. So to answer the question about is it a problem, yeah, I can tell you, just as a Member of Parliament out in the community, over the last 11 years, this would be one of the most frequent complaints people have about the laws that successive governments have put in place.